Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
4 minutes after the hour on this 19th day of November. Thank you very much for taking the time to tune in today. We appreciate it. Tom Coates in the house on this edition on 99.3 KTIA. As always, your phone calls are welcome. It is your voice we want to hear at 1-855-244-0077. So before we get involved with this latest, whatever it is by Obama, with the Gettysburg Address, question. So we're sitting in church on Sunday, and you don't regularly attend our church, but you've been there often enough to know Householder.
At least every time I have a grandchild baptized, I've been over there, Mac, and a few other occasions.
Okay. So you know Householder's style. He's just really open and just fun. Mm-hmm. So in the middle of his sermon, he decides, hi, Craig Robinson, how are you?
Sorry, I'm late.
No, you're not late at all. We'll get to you in a minute. So I'm just telling Tom how in service on Sunday, our pastor decided to say, what type of animal would you be? Well, if you were an animal, what would you be? And then you're supposed to think of that, and then you're supposed to look at to the person that you're with and tell them what kind of animal you'd be. Yeah. So what type of animal would you be?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess I would maybe choose an elephant. Elephant.
Elephant?
How about that?
Because you never forget?
I wish.
Well, your wife says you're such a stinker, she'd call you a skunk. Craig, what kind of animal would you be?
You know, I think I'd be some sort of bird. I mean, that way you can kind of travel far distances and have a good look down on the ground below.
Sure, like a pheasant maybe?
Sure. Well, no, not a pheasant in Iowa.
Go for the eagle, Craig.
Yeah, like an eagle.
That's a majestic
absolutely.
bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Majestic.
And protected. Can't get shot.
So my bride, and you don't know my wife, Tom, you know her well. My wife is a very proper lady, preacher's daughter. She's very genuine in the fact that she doesn't wear a lot of goo or anything like that. She just looks natural. Mm-hmm. She's, I think, if I can say it, she's that beautiful, very naturally beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. My favorite time to look at her is when she's sleeping. You know, it's just, love it. So anyway, and she's very professional. She's high-end, corporate, very intelligent, very proper, you know, PC.
So you married up.
Oh, up. I'm married.
So did I.
I'm married on the next planet. I'm married so far up. So guess what animal she said she'd be?
What?
Well, I thought maybe she'd be a peacock, right? A beautiful bird. Or maybe she'd be a jaguar. You know, or maybe she'd be an elk. Okay, no. Guess what she thinks she is?
What?
Kangaroo. Kangaroo. That's what she said she would be. So anyway, it's interesting. So anyway, I sent Householder a message about something, and I said, by the way, I'm a monkey, and he comes back. He says, I'm a monkey too. So, all right. Well, Craig, it's nice to have you here. Thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
I want to talk about what's going on locally and what's going on national. Can we just start with the Gettysburg Address thing from Obama? Okay. It's my understanding that there's this man who made a film with every former president along with a dozen stars, and they all recited parts of the Gettysburg Address or all of the Gettysburg Address.
Right.
All of it. And then he would chop it up. Mm-hmm. And Obama was the only one who didn't put under God. Is that right?
That's my understanding of it.
Have you followed it at all?
I have not followed it closely, but it's something that's obviously out there today and recently.
Would you call that a Freudian slip?
No, I don't think so at all.
He had a teleprompter.
I think this is. I think
So it was something that he intentionally omitted.
absolutely.
Then.
Well, yeah, except for the Kool-Aid drinkers on my Facebook page say that it was a conspiracy that the teleprompter, that the guy who wrote the teleprompter script was a Republican to make him look bad.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that this is something that, I mean, face it. There's people in this country who are ashamed of Christians and our religion and our the significance that played in our country and with our leaders. And so if you want to quote it accurately, you got to have it in there.
Yeah, right.
All right, but let's assume that it wasn't intentionally omitted and that he intentionally did take it out. Now we are told, even though that he went to Jeremiah Wright's church for 20 years, and Jeremiah Wright had this view that he was opposed to the American vision and so on and so forth. Still, there was at least a common grounding that there was an acknowledgement of God. This didn't even have to subscribe to Christianity's view of Jesus Christ. But this is a general acknowledgement of a God.
But you have to realize that a true liberal like Barack Obama, he is not taking out. It's not what he might personally believe. It's what is the proper role for government. And these liberals believe that there is no place in our society,
so
especially in our government, for any mention or recognition of God or the Creator.
So even though he won't come out and say it, he's intentionally correcting an error that he felt that Abraham Lincoln, who wrote the Gettysburg Address on the train to Gettysburg, created, and he's seeking, just like he went around the world when he first got to be president, and apologized for America's offenses. He is taking the opportunity to correct another error in his liberal mind.
Right. There should be no mention of it.
All right. I accept
in their
that.
opinion. That's not my opinion.
I accept that.
And see, I agree with you. It didn't say under Jesus. It just says God. So now you're telling me our president is what is that called, an agnostic?
Yeah.
Agnostic or atheist.
Right.
I mean, and I don't.
So he's a phony either way.
Yeah. But
but it's because that they believe that that's the proper role for government in our society, to be agnostic.
So he could very easily accept the existence of he may not be able to.
Tom,
because
no. We've heard this is his position. Look, this is the candidate who, when he was running for president the first time, said, well, I personally believe that marriage is between one man and one woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that is not the proper stance for government. And so it's the same position, just on acknowledging the Creator, whoever that is for you. Because, hey, I might have my personal beliefs, but they have no bearing on the role for government. That's what this is.
I'm reminded of a story, and I won't take time because it takes a few minutes to unpack this story, but it's a story about three great leaders dying at the same time and all going up to the pearly gates and meeting God the Father in person because they were of such consequences on earth. They were presented to God the Father, and one might be a Bill Clinton, and Father forgives him for his transgressions and said, come sit at my left hand, and the other one might be a George W. Bush, and he sits him down and says, sit down, and the next one be Barack Obama, and Barack Obama comes up and says, hi, I'm Barack Obama, and you're in my seat. It's almost to that level of hubris that the man has, that you wonder if he doesn't acknowledge a God that we're talking about, because he himself, what was it George Will said just the other day in his column? He said that Barack Obama is perhaps the first president in our history that believes the job is beneath him. And that sounds humorous, and yet it almost, I think Will is starting to catch some of the level of hubris that this man possesses.
Wow.
It's just so, and it's also so disrespectful because it's so obvious. I mean, did he not think anybody's going to pick up on that?
It's not just disrespectful. You cannot have a firm grasp and understanding of our founding and the history of this country without that acknowledgement. And I know that it drives certain people nuts that it's there, but it's who we are. Mm-hmm. It's in our DNA. Mm-hmm. And so to just turn away from that, I mean, I just think it's the worst type of ignorance that there is. That this nation was founded on certain principles and certain beliefs, and to suggest that no, that wasn't the case. To suggest that we can edit our founding documents, our currency, our some of the great speeches in all time, that we can just strike words from them, I think that's really dangerous.
Well, and that is somewhat symbiotic of this man's reign so far. Anything he doesn't like, he doesn't necessarily think he needs to go to Congress and get the laws changed. He just, by executive order and fiat and manipulation of regulatory bodies like the EPA
he is the
and
president.
so on and so forth, and he thinks he can do that.
Right.
And so I guess it's not surprising, and he certainly believes that the Constitution is a living, breathing document, and you just get enough of the right Supreme Court justices in there, and we can do anything we want to do. Right, Craig?
Yeah, it's all. He governs as if everything is up to the interpretation of himself. And so when the Obamacare law, there's an oops in it and there's a problem politically, hey, I can just, be the shade tree mechanic and fix it on the spot. I don't need to go through any process. I don't have to respect the will of Congress or the American people or our Constitution. It's just something you can fix yourself. And I think that's what makes him a very dangerous president.
Right.
Because where does that end?
Exceedingly.
What issue is there anymore that requires an act of Congress if our president has the ability and flexibility to do anything they choose?
Well, so what? You're the guy with the biggest crystal ball in the room. How is this going to play out? How, if you're a Democrat, if you're Hillary or whoever it is, try to get this seat, how do you distance yourself from a party?
Yeah.
And its leader of 8 years.
Yeah, this is going to be look. I've done a lot of thinking lately about what 2016 looks like, and doing that, I also think of what would present the biggest challenge for Republicans in the future. I'm a Republican, and bother myself with Republican politics, and so I think the worst thing that Democrats strategically could do to follow Obama is to try to nominate someone who would be viewed as a continuation of himself, of Obama himself. And so that's Hillary Clinton, that's Joe Biden. Those are the two front runners in this race. As a Republican, what I fear, my fear is of the unknown. And it is of someone entirely new that we don't know, much like Obama was in 2008. Fresh face, no record. I mean, there are mayors in this country who fit that bill that are very dynamic. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think if the Democrats really want to win, they need to go with a relative unknown or a Martin O'Malley of New Jersey or someone like that.
So you think Hillary is too tainted? Now,
So
Bill
my thing
came out
is
the other
bring
day.
on Biden and bring on Hillary. Those are people that
Okay.
the American people know. I fear the unknown as a Republican.
That's a good point. Bill Clinton came out the other day, Craig, and said that if it were he thinks that Barack Obama made an important promise to the American people and should keep it. Was this an attempt by Senior Slick Willie to try to distance himself and his wife from the disaster that has become Obamacare?
I don't think so at all.
Okay.
I think this is why Bill Clinton was a successful politician. Bill Clinton can take the temperature of a room better than most politicians in this country. I think he took the temperature of the room and honestly said what he believes here. I don't think this is political. I think this is, if it was him, he would go make that fix and he would work with Congress to get it done. Barack Obama is not Bill Clinton, though.
No, I understand.
Barack Obama is not going to go and say, you know what, we made a mistake. We need to fix this. Bill
Don't
Clinton
you
would.
You don't think,
But I don't
in
think this is a
calculating
calculation.
fashion.
I don't think this is him calculating.
Okay, all right.
All right, let's unpack that a little bit more. Then later on, some of the stuff that's going on in Iowa. Some candidates stepping forward, Branstad making some moves. You're right on top of that stuff with the Iowa Republican. We'll hear more from Craig Robinson here, live in Mac's World, with Tom Coates on KTIA, Iowa.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
22 minutes after the hour on the 19th day of November in the Lord's year 2013, and we appreciate you listening. I don't know if you're taking the time to listen live. I know there's lots of other choices. There's at least 3 or 4 talk shows on TV that you could be listening to. And if you're listening to this on podcast, wow, thank you so very much. You have a lot of choices there. A word that we didn't even know what it meant when we worried about Y2K, podcasts, right? We didn't know what podcasts were 13 years ago. Oh, you hardly know what they are now. Don't give me that.
I'm way behind the times, but I do know what a podcast is.
Yeah, because you listen sometimes on podcasts.
I do.
Here's Tom listening to podcasts, and then my phone rings. Yeah, Mac, you gotta listen to Jan Michelson right now, or you gotta listen to what's the guy's name? Simon Conway. He's really doing great. Do you ever call anybody and say you gotta listen to Mac? He's doing great right now. I'll bet not. Anyway, Craig Robinson is our guest here today with the Iowa Republican, and if you don't read the Iowa Republican, you should. Even if you're not a Republican, at least you will know the fair and honest summation of what's going on in the Republican Party in the state of Iowa. And
We have a lot of Democrat readers.
Do you? Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
sure. Well, they got to know what they're doing.
Right.
IowaRepublican.com. Okay.
Yep.
Just a little bit more on the Obama thing.
Yep.
And I is this what Democrats felt like with Bush? Because there were no weapons of mass destruction. Of course, there were, and we knew that, or we thought they were, because Saddam Hussein stood up and said, "I have weapons of mass destruction." But George W. Bush wasn't anything like this guy, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm just not drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
But let's flash back to their national convention, where the Democrat Party actively tried to remove any mention of God from their platform.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama is in line with his party, sadly. I mean, the activists. Now, I think there's a lot of good Democrats out there.
Well, there were, and that's why they had to take the
believers,
3 votes to put God back into their platform.
I mean, I'm not saying every Democrat doesn't believe this way, but the activists of that party, Obama reflects them.
Yes,
and that's who he is. So, I mean...
And I think your point's well made, Craig, on Bill Clinton earlier, where you were saying that Bill Clinton probably reflects maybe the grassroots and more of a populist feeling. But Obama and Hillary is a little closer to Obama than Bill is, and yet Obama is a unique individual, at least to achieve the level that he has with as little... and people have been making more of this recently since his blow-up of Obamacare. The background criteria to be a president was never present with this guy. I mean, you look at his background, an unspectacular state senator, a fellow that went in and in the U.S. Senate, got in there and immediately started campaigning for higher office. Didn't even finish his first term. No private experience, no business experience, nothing that really qualifies.
But you know what's lacking in all of those things? Where in Obama's life has there ever been accountability?
Right.
I mean, if you are a business owner, you are held accountable by your employees. If you have a board of directors or anything like that,
by the public,
but I mean, Obama has acted in a way that, look, it's all on me. I decide this is where I'm at. I mean, he was way against public opinion on a radical abortion procedure. I mean, he has shown. I mean, the thing that frustrates me about people who are disgusted by President Obama is this guy is exactly who he said he was. This guy is exactly he didn't pretend to be something he's not. We just fell for some charm. And not me.
I was gonna say, not we.
But I mean, we as the American people.
He got him hook, line, and sinker. He went for the fish that were right at the top of the water, chasing any little worm there was.
Do you want to know when I thought this election was done? And this was right. I mean, I was at Sam's Club down here on 63rd Street, and it was long before the 2008 election. And I walked behind this woman, and she had the Obama's first book, about
son of my father, father of my son,
sons of my father, whatever.
Sons, yeah.
And I walked out, and I just shook my head, and I thought, boy, he's already. I mean, there people are gonna buy into this. And boy, did they ever.
Well, and did you see the poll out today of registered voters now show that if the election were held today, Mitt Romney beats Barack Obama? I don't know if you saw that. It was just out today.
Yeah, that'll help with Mitt Romney's third presidential bid he's going to make.
I don't think he will.
You don't think so, do you?
I'm worried about it.
I don't think he will.
Really?
Hey, look at the PR campaign that he's on. Ann Romney, I think today or yesterday, she was on a national morning show. She did cable that night. I mean, this is not someone who is, has run twice and is going to the background.
But isn't she saying she doesn't want him to run and he's not going to run?
She said that the last time, and then he ran.
I don't think he should run.
I don't think he should run either. I'm just saying they've kept a very high profile for someone who's not interested in running for public office.
Now, Craig, I asked you off the air if you had come to the event a week ago Saturday with Sarah Palin, Mike Lee, Phyllis Schlafly was there. There were two things on the story on the front page of the paper the next day that caught my eye and irritated me. One was the caption, was the headline itself. Sarah Palin compares slavery to debt, which I know some people took it differently. I took it that the female reporter doing the story was just illiterate when it came to the biblical precepts about the borrower being the slave of the lender and much of what that meant, and that the fact she had the temerity to utter the word slavery, she thought that other people would be equally as offended as she, so she led with that
Right.
cover
I think
story.
you're correct.
And the other thing that I thought was absolutely a distortion and dishonest of her and whatever editor that she had to run this through was the statement that there were 750 people in attendance. I was one of those people in attendance, and it was clearly a crowd of 1,100 to 1,200 people. It was announced from the podium, and she unfairly compared that with a previous attendance a few years back where she drew, and I think I was at that event also, 1,500 at a Republican convention at a different venue.
That could hold more people.
That could easily hold more people. We were jammed up like sardines in this thing.
Well, look, I mean, I think there's a lot of reporters in this country who will find they'll tweak their stories in many different ways to get the point across that they have walking into that event. It's one of the things that we try not to do at the IowaRepublican.com. I don't go to an event with some preconceived notion about what this event means or what's to say. I don't know. I'm a viewer just like you, and then we write about it. The slavery thing bothers me more about. I mean, the Register's always off on their crowd estimates unless it's a Democrat.
Right.
But for John Edwards, for example, had like 2,500 people at the historic building. No way that could ever happen. But anyway, especially now. But the slavery thing really drives me nuts because I mean that became national news, and here's the thing: if you've ever been in debt, and I've been in debt, thankfully I'm not in debt anymore. And I'm talking to Tom Coates here. I can't believe I'm having this conversation. But if you have been in debt, how do you feel? You feel enslaved to it. Mm-hmm. I did, and you work hard to get out of it. And I think that, are we to a point in this country where we can't even utter the word slavery? Because
racist.
Yeah, I mean the next generation, okay, that's going to follow the mess that we've created in this country, have to deal with debt. Now, are they going to be free to govern this country as they seem fit? Or are they going to be enslaved by the debt that we've created and left them to deal with?
Right.
And I think that was the point that Sarah Palin was making. And I think that if you're a reporter and you're offended by that, I think you're a pretty bad reporter. Because
the woman is obviously shallow, and she's limited. I don't think I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt in this case. What Sarah said was very strong biblical doctrine. It goes back to the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. It's reaffirmed in the New Testament.
Well, we know reporters typically don't have any grasp on that.
That's right. And so, but even from a practical standpoint, I think if you were to come in with more of an open mind, as you're stating, Craig, without this preconceived narrative where I'm going to get the background to fit the narrative of my story. I already have the narrative written up. Now I just need something to feed into that. You would understand that it had nothing to do with race. In fact, I think Sarah even said something about some people may misinterpret this as race. It isn't racial. In fact, the slavery issue was maybe in our nation's history it had to do with the race component. It from a historical standpoint was not a race issue. Mm-hmm. Many of the Israelis were enslaved. Much of the slavery that took place had nothing to do with racism. So this is a bondage. This is a servitude issue that the borrower, which this country is quickly becoming. Now we're not on a GDP basis yet, but on a overall indebtedness basis, we, especially when you start counting in Medicare, Medicaid, now Obamacare, and the entitlement programs. We're easily talking close to $100 trillion in obligations on future generations. That is so massive. Right now, Mac, I'd have to give every man, woman, and child, if I'm saying that bill has to be paid, $300,000 bill. Now, do you think every man, woman, and child can come close to paying a $300,000 bill?
I don't.
No, and that's what Sarah was saying. And I think the right people heard it correctly. The left was seeking to mischaracterize it.
Yeah, and Jennifer Jacobs is the reporter who wrote the story. And you and I both had come to Jesus meetings with the Des Moines Register. And what I mean by that is we know what the truth is. We can prove what the truth is. There's no doubt what the truth is. But they can't see the truth if it's sitting right in front of them in red, white, and blue. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience.
Yeah, I've had some colorful conversations with their leadership.
Yeah, and it's just like, wow,
Yeah.
wow. No wonder you lost your building and you're sitting in rented space now.
Absolutely.
No wonder your circulation is half what it used to be. I mean, I have people, even my own age, elderly, who say, I don't read the register anymore. You know, and my wife writes our checks at home.
Yeah.
She literally, every month, she puts that bill in front of me and says, you want to do that again? And I'm an old paper boy.
I'm the same way.
You know,
I'm too. I'm too, and it does irritate me. And I just chomp. I'm like your wife. I chomp having to write that check, but I do want to continue to keep that in front of me in the morning. So
do you
that I
know
can take a
what
look at it.
paper in the state has the largest circulation?
No.
Midwest Country News.
Farm Bureau Spokesman.
Really?
It's a weekly. So, but on that, I mean, they more than the Daily Register circulation.
All right, we're going to move to Obamacare in just a minute and just talk about just what a flop this thing is. And somebody call it and defend it. Please. Frank, fake it. I don't care. It's next here live in Mac's World.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
23 minutes before the top of the hour. Top of the hour is Salem Radio Network News. And then at 3 minutes after 4, we'll have Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church. Craig Robinson from the Iowa Republican is in our studio. And let's talk for a minute about the infighting that's going on in the Republican Party in Iowa. Some people aren't aware that that's going on, but is it as bad as we see on the national level with the Blue Dog Democrats and the Tea Party and the conservative wing of the Republican Party?
In many ways, I think it's worse.
Wow.
And I think it's worse because it's personal. And I think it's worse because it's local. We're not talking about infighting that, we don't like the politics of, someone doesn't like the politics of Ted Cruz and someone prefers the politics of Terry Branstad.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. And there are groups involved in this spat that want to make it that because it'd be good for them strategically. But this is infighting of a wrestling for control of the GOP apparatus. And we've seen a lot of libertarian Ron Paul type people. They basically control the apparatus right now. And the thing is I don't necessarily have any problem with them having leadership roles within the party, as long as you are doing the proper work of the party. And the real question is are they? And there's not a lot of examples of them doing that. We have a party that's, the current administration of the Iowa GOP has sent out more press releases, they're loaded press releases saying, hey, you better, not attacking Latham or King or Grassley, but telling them you have to vote this way. And we don't do anything to say, hey, Bruce Braley, they're in the Enterprise. I used to work there. I know when I sat down on my first day on the job, I realized, hey, this is not the Republican Party of Craig Robinson. This is the Republican Party of Iowa. And I have my own political views. But I am not, just because I occupy this chair doesn't mean that I am advancing my personal ideology and my personal political agenda. I'm a steward of the Republican Party. And so I need to bring people together. And the one thing that this administration has not done, because they pick fights.
When you say administration, let's be clear. You're talking about Spiker, Fisher, and those people.
All right,
on the
absolutely.
Okay.
The chair and the co-chair.
Because I think you might get confused and assume you're talking about Branstad. You're not.
No, I'm not talking about Branstad. I'm talking about the actual Republican Party of Iowa and the people who control it.
Right.
And
now, the manifestation of a healthy organization would be money. And as we measure the amount of donations that have come in, they are far below what they were a few years ago.
It's not
Craig.
that, Tom. It's out of the first 9 months of this year, they were in the red for 7 of those months. Per month. And so you have a party that's not in fiscally good health.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going into a U.S. Senate race. This spat has become, I think, a huge distraction where our activists are so fired up and angry at their own party leadership that they're not focused and engaged on what can we do to win the U.S. Senate race. And maybe all this stuff will settle down and we'll be fine.
Maybe.
But this is a huge distraction. There's no trust.
But
there
Spiker,
are 5 county GOP organizations that have passed resolutions calling for Spiker to resign.
Point that out. Yeah.
It's not a good sign. And I know that there's been one that said, no, he's great. Okay. But it's not good that they're taking up that kind of effort in a year like this when we should be focused on reelecting a governor. We should be focused on winning congressional seats. We should be focused on the most important race in the state in a long, long time, a U.S. senator.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
know.
So
It's a
I
huge
think I take your point. It appears, and Spiker and his cohort Fisher were at this Sarah Palin thing, and they only sat a little ways from where I was, so I could see them. And there didn't, they got up, and there was a very mixed response. Now I know that I've listened to them, and there are some venues they were willing to go on, others they are not. Where they think they've got a warm reception, they'll go on. If they think there's going to be much criticism, they won't. And yet they want to believe that they're defiant, they're standing up, so they're selective on the venues that they go on. And they want you to believe that they represent the 80% of the party. Now, Craig, I know from our conversation before, you were quite skeptical of that assertion that they actually represent the conservative grassroots. Your comment before was it was a much narrower representation.
I mean, look, the other problem is there's a ton of conflicts of interest within this group. So we have sitting members of the State Central Committee who are also on a Liberty Iowa PAC, that, a political organization that promotes an agenda. And frankly, I don't think you can be both. I think you're either pro-Republican and be a part of the Republican Party of Iowa, a formal role, or you can go do your Liberty Iowa PAC. I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. But to say you can't wear both hats. Mm-hmm. And so my problem is so the Liberty Iowa people that are on the Central Committee sent out this scathing email this week. And it was all about how, the moderates want to take control back. It's us versus them. They motivate people out of fear, right? This is the same thing that Ron Paul does. And they try to imply that, look, we are we got to have the Ron Paul and the Rick Santorum people show up just like we did the last time. Like they're part of this social conservative group. Here's the fact. The guy who runs Liberty Iowa, the State Central Committee member, this guy was in Rick Santorum's face from the very first time he stepped foot in the state, putting nasty flyers on cars, harassing him at the state fair booth, harassing him on the campaign trail. I mean, this guy hates Rick Santorum, and yet his organization is sending out a letter saying, hey, all of us Santorum people and Ron Paul people, we need to work together. It's a farce.
Well, and you're obviously much more astute than the average bear. Do you think it's enough to fool many of the conservative Christians into thinking that they're part of this group?
Look, I think what happened, helped these people reach power, is that after the 2008 election, there was a lot of people who were tired. I mean, you got to remember, they were worked to death on the Bush campaigns. The Nussle campaign ran a very similar organization where we just, like slave driver, sorry if that's racist again, but, worked our volunteers to death. And so after the 2008 election and after, especially after 2012, they said, look, if there's new people in this party, welcome, I'm tired. And so they didn't go to conventions. They weren't involved. And then now you see the ramifications of that. That if you say, hey, look, let's let the new people do it, well, you better know what the agenda of the new people is. Because, we talked earlier about how the Democrats wanted to take God out of the platform in their national convention. Well, as a former platform state chairman, that's been diminished in the Republican Party, especially with this current libertarian kind of platform we have with our party today. It's not as strong. It's not as socially conservative as it once was because this libertarian influence has had more power in the last caucus to convention cycle.
And they would be just as much against, Mac, our own Christian conservative agenda as many of the Democrats would. You remember when you and I interviewed Ron Paul some years ago on the Radio Row in regards to immigration? Yeah. And I told him at the outset that I had read much of his works going back in the 70s and very much agreed with his position on money and finances. But I intentionally stopped there, because much of his other types of thinking, as it comes to what Craig just described, I didn't ascribe to.
Well, I think that the other thing is that, the current Republican Party chair and stuff, he likes to note that, they've had a pro-life event and all this stuff. But they're talking on a 30,000-foot level. But you know what? These are the same people who didn't fight for the pro-life legislation that we're trying to get passed in the legislature this time. They wanted it all or nothing.
And okay, we'll take your phone call when we come back. We'll wrap it up with Craig Robinson. But before we wrap it up, how is Hillary Clinton going to distance herself from the Obama administration? That's next.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to MaxWorldLive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
Okay, 10 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then, of course, Pastor Michael Mudloff. Let's go to the phone real quick here because The Voice is on the radio. Frank, how are you today, Frank?
Oh, good. I just caught in on the last 20 minutes of your program. I was tied up in something else trying to put an igniter in an oven, but I want to make...
You know, igniters don't fit very well in ovens, but very small midgets will.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. I've called the Republican Party on a couple of occasions, and I've made my feelings known that the blue blood Republicans is not going to win an election without the conservative vote. And everything that they've been doing, from McCain to Romney, and what they're trying to do now is they're trying to primary the establishment party is starting to primary the so-called Tea Party candidates next year. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a recipe for a losing disaster, because if you alienate the conservatives, you're never going to win another election in your lifetime, a Republican.
That's probably true.
Look, I don't disagree with your sentiment. I think that, and where I kind of was thinking while you were voicing that opinion is the media is already talking about 2016 and has somewhat anointed Chris Christie as a front runner,
which is just death to him.
Which is and frankly, I don't see how he plays in a Republican primary setting. I think that he's a gifted politician, but in terms of his politics, I think it's going to be very difficult. And so my thing is that I also think we have a role and responsibility as conservatives, because we should find candidates who I think could appeal to both. That aren't extreme, that aren't
Chris
crazy.
Christie, he's in an incredible Democratic state,
and
he just got reelected.
Right.
So he must appeal to both sides.
No, right, but I would bet you $1 million that now I sound like Mitt Romney betting Rick Perry, but I'll put money on it. A Republican in New Jersey has not much in common with a Republican in Iowa. I mean, you're talking, I would guarantee most of the Republican electorate in New Jersey is not pro-life. And so there's a lot of issues like that. But my thing is that, look, I think there are guys like Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin, who could thread the needle. Who is he as moderate and establishment as Chris Christie? No. Is he as conservative and Tea Party as Ted Cruz? No. But you know what? I think there's a lot there that people could like and be satisfied with and would be, I mean, look, this guy fought the biggest fight ever in terms of the recall election. And so I think that there are a lot of things that you know, we as voters should also make a calculation and say, who's the conservative that could go up and beat the moderate? Because right now we're just saying, no, I want this over here. And we don't, at the end of the day, we don't get anything we want. And so I think we need to find candidates. And I think Scott Walker is a great blend of that. And there's always politicians like that. We just have to get behind them.
Rand Paul's making the circuit. He was on, I think, all the Sunday morning shows.
Here's the thing. Look, I'm a vocal critic of kind of libertarian Republicans. To me, as a social conservative, I really don't have much in common with them because I think at their core, they oppose the things that I support when it comes to social conservative issues. You know, I believe there is a role for government. I believe that there is a role in government that deals with morality. They do not. And so I think at the end of the day, you know, it's going to be hard for a libertarian type candidate like Rand Paul to appeal to social conservatives. Right now he can, but that's because he's not a presidential candidate, and that's because he doesn't have an opponent.
Who's the name who's the name that the average voter wouldn't recognize that's going to play in the Republican primary?
Oh boy. See, I don't think we're going to have a lot of crazy names. I think we're going to have a diverse field. I think that we're looking at a gubernatorial cycle, in my opinion, where governors are going to have the advantage over members of Congress. And so, you know, I think that Chris Christie's definitely running. I think Scott Walker and I think Bobby Jindal. Those are the governors to look at. I think the person you might want to keep an eye on is Susana Martinez out of New Mexico. Dynamic. She'd be a game changer if she ran, frankly. I don't know if she will or can.
My wife is not into politics, but she keeps herself apprised of the issues. So when she votes intelligently. But she said the most horrible thing to me the other day. She said, you know, you and Chris Christie have something in common. And I said, what's that? She said, if you lost some weight, you could win an election. And I thought to myself, you know, if Chris Christie could lose 60, 70, 80 pounds between now and the caucuses in Iowa, a lot of women especially would look at him and say, oh, that guy can get things done. I mean, look what he's done.
Chris Christie is the most gifted politician that Republicans have.
Okay.
I've been to events with him in Iowa. I look for odd things at events. I'm a weird critic. I'm not looking for the politician that can whip a crowd into a frenzy. I'm looking for the politician who can silence a room and hang on every single word that they say. That is a talent that Mike Huckabee had in 2008.
Is he a candidate?
Maybe. That is but I don't know what he can do. But Chris Christie has that ability.
Yeah.
But the problem he has is that, and I've told national reporters this repeatedly, everything he did in the last year made perfect sense in terms of getting reelected in New Jersey. But everything he did also made it more difficult for him to go through a Republican primary for president.
And
in
we
2016.
recognize that on the cusp of that hurricane where he embraced Obama, in the coming
and
days.
I've written an article on this. There is all that stuff, and that's what your activists are going to key on. But this is a guy who has flip-flop positions on immigration, on the Second Amendment, and on gay marriage. And so, look, those issues aren't just conservative issues. Those are issues that people are going to have a real tough time with. Look, they wanted to label Mitt Romney as a flip-flopper. He didn't have three major flip-flops like that. Christie does.
Craig Robinson, Iowa Republican, thanks for coming in. We'll have you back in a couple weeks, and we'll get to that question. How does Hillary distance herself from a horrible Obama administration, and we still have, 3 years left? How are we going to do it? Tom, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Until I see you again, remember, just do one thing. No matter who's president, no matter who's governor, no matter who's senator, no matter who's dog catcher, we all need the same thing more than anything else: prayer.